we talk about the quarterback tax. These guys are probably going in the first round, and I really feel that way about Hooker, as I've said before, too. I wouldn't be shocked to see him sneak in on the back end of round 1. I don't think he's in the top 10 or anything like that. These guys are tier 3 guys. They have flaws in their game. They're both older prospects at the quarterback position, which is not as common typically unless you fully dominate and then you go in the first round. Joe Burrow comes to mind. So with Hooker, we'll center in on him here. Number one, really enjoyed watching him. Really did. I think that he is a lot smarter than given credit for. And what I mean by that is everybody goes, oh, but Tennessee's offense and it's one read. And yes, I understand that. But Hooker still sees things pre-snap and is an incredibly smart player in terms of handling the football. I mean, when you just dive in, so he's got the big body, he's 6'3", he's 217. He is a sixth-year senior. He obviously transferred from Virginia Tech. He's got 10.5-inch hands. He's got these massive hands that he controls the football with. Team captain, smart, tough. I mean, sure, he's 25. I think he's going to turn 26 during that rookie season. The mechanics and dropbacks to me are consistent and fluid with Hendon Hooker, and that's experience, that's comfort, that's work ethic. I wrote, once again, tremendous care for the football with just 5 interceptions on 631 pass attempts over the past 2 seasons. Yeah. I don't care what offense you're in, what planet you're playing on, and hint, he played in the SEC, everybody. That's incredible. And it shows up on tape. And here's the deeper look. He went from 9 turnover-worthy plays in 2021 to just 4 in 2022. So he's getting even better with the football. I wrote he drives the ball outside the numbers, but he needs to cut down on passes thrown high. Ball placement is put in an advantageous area for his receivers and away from DBs. A lot of air under deep balls, but extremely effective when he pushes the ball down the field. 30 of 68 on 20-plus yard throws with 13 touchdowns and 1 interception. All right, I just talked about a guy you think is going number 1 overall besides the age. So let's get into where it's not all sunshine and rainbows for Hendon Hooker. He's got to get better under pressure. It's bad. And it's not, obviously undraftable. It's not day 3 bad. It's a fact, though, that he was only pressured on 23.6% of his dropbacks. He completed only 51.2% of the passes. His yards per attempt went down to 6.9. And here's the last one. He took 27 sacks. That is a lot of holding on to the football. And for somebody that he's an interesting athlete, right? I don't think he has incredible escapability in terms of quick twitch, but when he does get room to run wide out of the pocket, he's got long striding buildup speed. So he's not this quick twitch escape artist. And I think when we talk about Bryce Young, that's in his game a little bit, where it's shoulder dip, it's quick feet reset in the pocket. With Hooker, it's a little bit longer, but when he gets going down the field, that's why he can break off these 20-plus yard runs, because he's got long speed. And that brings me to the 566 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns in 2022. He also fumbled 7 times, but I loved that build-up speed. So with Hooker, your concerns are, of course, improving under pressure, the fact that he will turn 26 during the season next year and he's coming off the ACL, but the guy has all the traits you could ask for at the position. And I think in the right mold, assuming health, he is going to be a starter at some point in the future.
Hendon Hooker, I think, does get too much crap for the offense that he's in, because
for Jalen Hyatt being open and him throwing a deep ball to him.
And those are his words at the combine.
Yeah.
There is something to look, Buddy's in an offense where Josh Heupel was in his bag the last 2 years. And these guys are open and he's hitting them. And I think that because you cannot just throw all of his good production and statistics out of the window because of that. But what does give me hesitancy with Hendon Hooker, and I'll explain where I have him, because I do have him number 5, but I'll tell you, he's a lot closer to Tanner McKee, who I have at 6, than he is at Will Levis, who I have at 4. And the reason why is because when pressure ramped up, as you mentioned, when the throwing windows got tight, the ball placement started to escape him. And you could tell he was not as naturally accurate with the football when things were not in structure. So I don't want to take away from the good that Hendon Hooker does, But when things become out of the structure, whether it was beyond the first read or whether the safety was coming downhill a little bit quicker than he thought, or the pressure was in his face and he had to get rid of the ball a little bit sooner than timing, or whatever it was, whenever that throwing window got smaller, I felt like you watched his effectiveness, which is what a lot of people are going to boast with Hendon Hooker.
Yeah.
You watch that effectiveness drop pretty significantly, at least in the 4 games that I was able to watch of him. So I think that that's something that's a major talking point of him for sure. I thought the arm was pretty adequate is the way that I have it in my scouting report. I don't think it's anything that's going to be like a major liability, but he's certainly not pushing the ball like Stroud and like Levis and Anthony Richardson are. But I think that the arm strength is adequate. Dude, what was up with the feet just going into quicksand at times? Did you catch on that? Why? I don't understand. Like, he would hike the ball and then all of a sudden his feet would plant. And there's guys like flying all around him and he's just a statue and he's staring at where he wants to go. Now, some of that is rhythm. Some of that is timing where he's making sure that his foot's in the ground when he needs to release the football. And I understand that. You still could be a lot lighter on your feet. And it wasn't an always thing with him, but it did happen a lot more than I thought it was going to. And so the footwork was a little odd. The throwing motion and the release, though, beautiful. He's got the big hands. Yeah. You can tell he's got a really good grip on the football. It's got a tight spiral. That's how it's allowed to go far deep down the field with that kind of high trajectory on it. It's a really pretty pass when it comes off of his hand. But yeah, I mean, when I look at Hooker and when I think of his evaluation, I also had him in where's my tiers here? I had him in tier 3, but I also have 2 other quarterbacks in tier 3.
Okay.
And that's Tanner McKee and Aiden O'Connell actually is the other one who I have, who Aiden would be 7 for me right now. Now, within the tiers, I will say this, because we're going to get to this and I'm going to have to clarify this again. Even though I kind of see them in the same bucket, I do have a clear 1, 2, 3 within the bucket. It's not just these guys are all in one tier, pick one, it doesn't matter. It's some of them are further along. Some of them are for certain systems. Some of them have different pros and cons, but ultimately I feel like the ceiling is somewhat similar for these quarterbacks. And man, when I looked at Hendon Hooker, I don't think I have the faith that he can be a consistent starter at the NFL level. And even if he gets the opportunity to become the starter, I wonder if he's not going to have a play style that's always going to be like, but can we do better? Because you know how that happens with quarterbacks where,
oh, of course,
shoot, even we're talking about it with Geno Smith right now, right? Geno Smith.
That's who that's his high end spectrum to me.
Okay.
When I watch Hendon Hooker, I'm like, and I've watched a lot of Geno in my life. I scouted him from when he was at West Virginia. He was drafted by the Jets.
Right.
He started to turn the corner with the Jets, and then he got punched in the jaw. And it took a long time after that.
Not metaphorically either, folks. Not metaphorically. He got punched in the jaw.
No. Like literally. Hendon Hooker's best reminds me of Seattle Geno to a T.
So, and that's kind of where I come back to with Hendon Hooker is Geno just had an awesome season. And they're still thinking about replacing him when they got a higher draft pick. So that's what gives me a little bit of hesitation with loving Hooker as much as some other people have mock drafting him really high, whether it's Tannenbaum who had him in the top 5, or I think DJ's had him in his first round as well.
To the Vikings, which is not that late.
And you and I have talked on this show and said we feel like Hendon Hooker could be a back end of the first round pick, and I still agree with that. But remember, boards and rankings are done with our eyes, mocks are done with our ears, so it's always going to be a little bit different there. The way that I see Hendon Hooker is I see him as a short-term starter. I see him as a guy who can give you starter ability. Is he going to be a guy that you invest in? I didn't have enough faith outside of ideal situations and structure within that offense to tell me that that would be the case. So that's the way I view him. I got him as QB5, but he is in that 3rd tier along with Tanner McKee, along with Aiden O'Connell as those guys that are behind the top 4 guys.
Yeah, I think it's funny how we get places, right? I don't know how we got to here with Hendon Hooker. And when I say we, I don't mean you and I, Trevor. I mean the consensus that, he's a first-round quarterback. And I feel the same way about number 4 for me and Will Levis. But it's just, it's the cost of doing business at the position. And if
Sure.
you have the traits to play, you're going to go in the first round. And with Levis and Hooker, there are a lot of warts in their game that I would love them in the second round, where I can develop them on my time, where I don't have to put them in the spotlight right away, where I can let things breathe for them. And I don't know if Hooker by nature is getting that because he's hurt, right? Like that's not a good thing. That's not a good reason.
Yeah.
So that it's tough. It's really tough how the evaluation of quarterbacks is fascinating to me. And I've missed plenty. I've always said that. But it's funny when you classify a guy, like when Jordan Love was coming out, right? I had Jordan Love that year in the back end of the first round. That's the only time I could think of. I looked at a guy and I was like, I love his tools. He needs time. Maybe he's had too much time. He needs time. And if he goes to the back end of the first round, he'll be afforded that luxury of time. And that's exactly what's happened to him. That doesn't happen to anyone else that you classify that way anymore, ever. So, and it won't happen to Will Levis. I don't think he's going to be given these like 2 years of,
probably not.
And
probably
trained.
not.
Yeah.
Right. So I think it just to kind of wrap it up with Hooker as we move on to Will Levis. I don't really care about the age. I'm going to be honest. Like,
doesn't matter to me.
The age comes into account if you're drafting him in the top 10.
Yep.
Where I think Hendon Hooker is going to get drafted, maybe end of the first round, certainly somewhere on day 2. I don't really care about that. I'm going to be honest. I don't really care about the age because some guys are just late bloomers. Like, would you rather have a player be good when they're young? Yes, that's why those guys declare early and they get drafted early, because normally their talent is standing out at a young age. So I don't really care about the age. I don't really care about the injury either, if I'm going to be honest. I think that what really is the reason why I've got him at number 5 and the opinion that I have on Hendon Hooker is simply because when he was healthy and when he was in his best situation, there were still things about his game that as a 5th-year quarterback, 6th-year quarterback, whatever it was, I was like, this feels like who you are. If Tennessee is like your best case scenario, your best situation where we saw the best of you, and I still see some things that give me a little bit of hesitation, that's what makes me feel like at best, he's going to be a short-term starter in the NFL, a guy that you're probably going to look to upgrade as years go on, but at absolutely a preferred high-end backup at the very least in this league.
Which is really valuable. I can't say it enough. It really
sure.
A high-end backup these days is worth a second-round pick, and
you just got to evaluate it properly.